going to be a great opportunity for us to interact. I think in light of the recent activities in this country, and not just on one location, but a couple recent major incidents where there's been a loss of life, I'd just like to open with a brief moment of silence or prayer, whatever you respect, to start it off. My name is Superintendent Chris Flanagan. I don't think I need a microphone if I do raise your hand. I am honored to be before you with such a wonderful panel in front of you. The last time we did this, we sat up top and we were able to really project a couple different ideas and concepts, but what we found the most important and valuable piece was the interaction with the group that was there. So I talked to a couple of our panelists who are returned veterans here from our other symposium, and we decided to sit down and be one-on-one with the audience so we can have a true interaction and a true dialogue. I think we know why we're here. We're here to talk about, unfortunately, being safe in our schools, what happens in an active shooter incident or active attacker. And as we're learning, it's happening in religious institutions, churches, and other places. And that's a very serious and sombering situation, and that's why you're here. But we need to have focus, we need to be attentive to the issue and see what can be done as far as these things go. With this great panel, and I'm not even going to try and introduce all their different levels of expertise, we're going to be here to have one-on-one interaction and hopefully answer some of your questions. Besides for answering your questions, we're going to be taking notes to see where the Radnor Police Department needs to continue to move forward and make sure we're meeting the needs of the community. So with that, I'm going to open because I want to be very respectful of everybody's time. I'm going to start all the way down on my left with the gentleman in the camouflage hair.
He thought he could hide.
I'm Detective Metzler here at the police department. I am a member of the Central Delaware SWAT team for over 12 years. I'm also an active shooter instructor here in the department, firearms instructor. I also am trained in school threat assessments. And so I went to school where I can, and I've done it now for a church, school. I have a couple more schools lined up. Go in, take a look at your facility, where I can tell you what strengths, where maybe you might want to think about improvement. I mean, there's always budget issues and everything, but what we can do a full-blown report on, this is what we recommend, this is where you're strong, this is maybe something to consider. So I went away from training for that. We also do, just recently went to new training for our department to get our officers all alert certified, which is an active shooter class as well.
Good evening. My name is Joe Pinto. I'm a newly sworn-in lieutenant here in the Radnor Township Police Department. I've been with Radnor for over 23 years now. I too am a firearms instructor, both for the patrol gun and the patrol rifle. I am not an instructor in the safe school stuff, but I've attended all those schools that Detective Metzler mentioned other than the instructor school, and just here to try to get this sorted out and answer all the questions that we can.
Good evening. I'm Joe Ryan. I'm the Chief of the Criminal Investigation Division in the District Attorney's Office, known as CID. We are set up to assist local police departments like Radnor with major investigations. We also run the county bomb and hazmat team. So with incidents with explosives, we'd be assisting Radnor, plus with any major incident they have.
Good evening. I'm Ken Bachelor, Superintendent of Radnor Township School District. As someone who was a classroom teacher when Columbine took place, I have seen what our public schools, how we've transitioned and changed, and the very sad and unfortunate events that have happened across the country, but how we as an educational community and communities have had to respond to that. As a parent myself, it's something that is a foremost concern for me, school safety.
Good evening. My name is Tasha Copland. I'm the district attorney in Delaware County. I've been a prosecutor for my entire career, for 26 years. I started in the DA's office right out of law school, rose to become chief of narcotics, prosecuted all kinds of crimes, and worked in the U.S. Attorney's Office for 6 years as an assistant United States attorney, and was appointed the district attorney in January of this year. I have enjoyed a wonderful relationship, not only with our police departments, but also with our Delaware County Intermediate Unit, which our superintendent is obviously a member of. And obviously, one of many concerns as the district attorney and chief law enforcement officer of the county is the safety of our community members, our school students, our teachers, our administrators, our community centers, our religious institutions, in an effort to proactively help organizations and schools and teachers. What we do every year is hold a Safe School Summit. We held one, as we consistently do this year, and just last week. And part of what my agenda on that is preparing those who protect our children. So we literally did what we probably never thought we would have to do, which is teach people how to prepare to keep our classrooms safe. We literally had people learning how to protect themselves, how to protect their classroom, how to defuse situations, how to stop the bleed. And those are just some of the initiatives as the district attorney I do hand in hand with our local police departments and our school districts.
Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Lerner. I'm a social worker from the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. I've been at CHOP since 1999. I worked in the emergency room for 17 years. We are all master's prepared social workers. And we, aside from seeing a multitude of kinds of cases, we do see a lot of psychiatric emergencies. Parents bring their kids in, schools send their kids in, the police bring them from the streets. And then the social worker, is part of the medical team for the initial evaluation to determine the psychiatry need to get involved, do they need to be in the hospital, what level of care do they need. If it's recommended outpatient, there's a whole bunch of different levels of care, but if it's just outpatient, then the psychiatrist doesn't necessarily see the patient and or the family, but as a medical team, we decide that this child in front of us needs to be in the hospital. The psychiatrist comes down, does an evaluation, and then the social worker gets the case back and calls the insurance company, finds them a place to go. The demand for mental health care, whether it's outpatient, intensive outpatient, partial, the demand is so high and the resources are so much lower than that. So we've had kids that, depending on what their level of need is, it might be somebody who has a medical condition also with the mental health piece. Oh boy. So sometimes we've had children sit in the emergency room. Is it on? Okay, sorry. All right. Ooh. We've had children sit in the emergency room for 5, 6, 7 days, waiting for the appropriate placement. But the social worker is part of that team to, what if the child wants inpatient? They feel like they really need to be in the hospital, but the parent is refusing. Or what if it's the opposite? What do we do? What does the psychiatrist have to do? What do parents have to do? All that kind of stuff. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Robinson. I'm from Sacred Heart Academy in Bryn Mawr, and I am the safety director there. And I just would like to say that I'm really thrilled that my school is not only in Radnor Township, but in Delaware County. Safe school summits and constant meetings, and whether it's with the school district or the police department or any level of law enforcement, they are extremely helpful in helping us review our plans, making sure that we're staying current with current practices. And as a school on the smaller side, we're not a big school district. We really count on that assistance. And my colleagues in other counties don't have as many resources as we do when I go to bigger meetings. So I know we have a lot of work to do. I know our work isn't finished, and we work hard at it every single day, but I'm really grateful to be here in Radnor Township and have all these tremendous resources from the township and the county.
So definitely humbled by my panelists that I share with it. I'm going to get right into the next part of the program. And before we start, I believe people make a difference, and that's why we're here. And that's what needs to happen as many times as possible all over the country. But while we're here, there's a great story, and that is some Radnor residents got together. One, they asked for this program. Two, their power together ended up donating 500 gun locks. And then three, with their power and then the story, we got the district attorney to join in. And not only did she join in and acknowledge their work, committed to matching the donation of gun locks. So I'd like to ask the Be Smart and the Radnor Residents for Gun Safety to just quickly stand up and take some applause, because you did something very positive and got us all here. There's a table outside, and the free gun locks will have some of our police officers who have expertise in handling weapons outside at the end to go over that. But I just think it's a great way to start off the program on again, that serious topic. Before we get started, there's a couple things. The people make a difference, as we stated. In our last event, we talked about a case study where a neighborhood was able to make the difference and report active shooter. It's been, another story has come into place, and in Pittsburgh, and the mother was on the Ellen show, if I have it correctly, where she was acknowledged, where she ended up getting a hate email. I believe it was over racial issues, but it could have had other components. This mother, instead of doing nothing, even though it was a remote email / Facebook post, said, I'm going to do something, did a little bit of homework. So from the state of Pennsylvania, she called Kentucky, called the Kentucky authorities. They started doing their research, and again, if I have the story correct, they were pulling up to do the interview, stopped the individual as he was exiting his driveway in a vehicle with basically armed weapons and a plan to attack not only one but two respective schools. So the see something, say something is so important. We need all of you to take that responsibility seriously and make sure that we make our neighborhoods as safe as possible. And that case study, again, starts the format for this discussion. We're going to go right into a very brief PowerPoint, and the purpose of tonight is to have a dialogue and a question and answer with our panelists. We've changed the way we're training. We were overwhelmed last year training over 3,000, maybe 4,000 students, teachers, and business people in Radnor Township alone. We're very happy that they called upon us and took the challenge seriously. We wish we weren't doing it. But because of that, we went to an online platform to allow for instantaneous training and instantaneous capabilities to pull those resources off. As you know, the federal government has some phenomenal websites. The Attorney General's, the district attorney has many different websites. We were trying to tie together our philosophy in training, which you'll hear a little bit more about in a second. And Lieutenant Dietrich is sitting over there, is going to just bring up very quickly our active shooter resource page. Once you bring up this page, you'll see the foundation of some of our training, which is run, hide, fight. The video is actually embedded, so if you have a new teacher, a new employee, a new person at your church, you can instantly get to it. We can play that later for you. I know many of you gone through it. And then we have all the different formats of different training, whether it's small, 3x5 card size, or full page documentation of how to prepare yourself or your organization for an active shooter situation and to train, because unfortunately you do have to take the responsibility seriously and train for these. So this website is available 24/7, 365, and it has the various resources that you can print right at your site. We were just wasting a lot of time getting to people, and we wanted to make sure that if you call for us, we can direct you to this website and take instantaneous action on some level of training before we set up a schedule. So please take some time and review that. We'll go on to our next slide. We are here to talk about the gun locks. One of the things to avoid active shooters is to have any type of weapons that are misplaced, lost, or stolen, make them as safe as possible. We realize that isn't going to solve every issue, but we're certainly trying to do something positive and not sit around and do anything. I was going to ask Lieutenant Pinto to quickly demonstrate just how the new gun locks work. These are actually the gun locks that were donated by the DA's office and the Radnor Residents for Gun Safety.
These are the locks that will be given out at the end of the show. I'm going to ask first Detective Metzler to confirm that my weapon is empty. Correct. No chance of it misfiring. Both the manufacturer and the Radnor Police Department are going to express that this weapon, this tool is a phenomenal tool, and it's wonderful to have, but at no time is it designed to protect a loaded weapon. This is to be used on an empty weapon at all times to take an extra further step and make sure that weapon is inaccessible to somebody who's not supposed to touch it. We have here a semi-automatic weapon. We double check that it's empty. The magazine is removed. There's nothing in the chamber. You take your gun lock, and this is all done according to the manufacturer, how they want it to be. Make sure it's unlocked. First thing you're going to do is you're going to run it up the magazine hole, out the breech, okay? And it'll come back down, run it through the trigger guard behind the trigger, and then you can put it back in there. Got to pull it through because it's stiff. Make sure you get it in your locking. Make sure it's locked. With these things, they will not lock. By pushing it in, you got to turn the key. Once it's locked, double check to make sure it's locked. And what that effectively does is two things. It doesn't allow, three things actually. It doesn't allow a magazine to go into the gun to load it. Will not allow the slide to completely close if you wanted to put manually put a round in the chamber. And third and foremost, it won't let you pull the trigger. Again, we're not saying you should ever do this with a loaded weapon. This is to be done with an unloaded weapon at all times, and it's designed as an extra step of security to keep those away from using it who shouldn't use it. We didn't have a revolver. If any of you still have revolvers, I'll be glad to talk to you afterwards. It's the same thing. You're going to run it through the cylinder with the cylinder open, run it through one of the chambers, through the thing, back around, and lock it up that way. And we'll be able to talk about that afterwards if any of you have any questions about that. That's in a nutshell how that works.
Thank you, Lieutenant Pinto. That brings us to the second great thing that the Radnor residents did, is they brought up, do you guys take in weapons? In other words, if people want to get rid of their guns so we can avoid them being stolen, misused, whatever the circumstance may be, I was like, oh, sure, of course we do. We always have. For 21 years we've done it. And what concerned me is that our residents really weren't aware of that. So we've promoted tonight, not only with the free gun locks, but also a Radnor Police Firearms Turn-In program. And with that, already we've had 4 guns turned in today just when we started it. Just to remind everybody that we take them 24/7, 365. We're always happy to take in weapons. We just ask that people come to the police station, leave them in the vehicle, summons the police officer. We will come out, make sure they're safe, and bring them into the police station. But, and Chief Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, most police departments in Delaware County, same procedure?
Yes, and our office also.
Oh, so if you don't live in Radnor, you live in a bordering town, you see Chief Ryan later, we'll make sure that you're taken care of. Or if you come to Radnor Police, we will take him as well. So that is another great thing that happened tonight as we go through. Real quickly, Run, Hide, Fight, one of the programs that we do teach here at Radnor. It is a foundation and a building block. I'm going to kind of call it level 1. As we continue on in our training and studies, unfortunately, of these violent attacks, and they don't just have to be guns, but clearly they are the lead of the mass destruction. There are knives and other things. We have to teach people to have a plan. We can't just sit there and not do anything. We are very prepared to come to your organization, whether it's 2 people or 1,000 people, and give a presentation on that. Again, our online resource has that ready to go over just a video. So literally after tonight, if you've never seen it before, you can do that. And I'll ask Suzanne and Ken Bachelor to confirm that we have gone extensively to their staff, the entire Radnor High School student body, Sacred Heart significantly, and multiple other schools. Agnes Irwin had to cancel tonight. They're a huge supporter of these school programs. So they are available to you as residents is what I want to stress. And we'll keep going on this. We're going to have our guys be able to go outside and talk to you about this and go over the video if you do want to do it. Want to stress before we get into the dialogue the future opportunities. We can again, your school, workplace, religious institution, or community group. We have never done businesses before, and we've been in a couple of the big business high-rises, and I acknowledge them for doing that. Our officers are trained in site security evaluation, as well as the Pennsylvania State Police. We offer Stop the Bleed training here. The district attorney offered it at one of the major school events. And you know what? It's actually good for any type of emergency. If somebody slips and gets cut with glass, it doesn't just have to be for a horrific event. And it's just as valuable as CPR. Active drills in your location. We can do low key or we can do full scale. We can build you into feeling a zone of comfort in that. We're actually hopefully going to do our first school on November 17th with the entire student body present. We're working out the details this Thursday, and hopefully we can make an announcement on that as well. And we're always happy to meet with you and talk about any issues. We are connected to the DA's office, other resources, the FBI, Delaware County CID, so we're able to come and move forward on those particular, all those particular channels. And our police command staff, Chief Ryan, will be standing around later tonight just to go over those opportunities with you. So that was the short part of the PowerPoint, because we just wanted to review where we're at. The future, again, holds, as we get more information, often what happens after some of these attacks is the FBI within 6 months will usually produce a very thorough, very detailed, very unbiased document on what they believe has happened, and then police departments, county agencies review those and evaluate our current tactics, whether it be proactive pre-training, how we react right during an emergency, or how should we change our drills to make sure that we're meeting the needs of what's currently going on in the United States. So that is what we'll hold for the future, and we will also catalog all the information collected today from you guys. What I wanted to do now is just start some open dialogue where you have all these panel experts where we can ask questions. I would ask that we remain focused on specific questions and not politics. This is about how to make the community safe. Everybody's welcome to their own beliefs, but I want to stay on target with making sure that we get the information out on what our concerns are in the community. So what we'll do is I'm going to walk around. Lieutenant Dietrich got called away. And we'll see if somebody wants to start off with a question to our panel.
You could speak to threat assessment and what we as parents should be looking for in terms of school safety.
Sure. The school that I went to was a site threat assessment. It was going to the school, taking 200, Joe was with me there, taking all kinds of pictures and determining, and we start with from the outer layers and move in. So I start at the perimeter of the property, walk around, take a look at fencing. Is there holes in the fences and everything? Is there signage properly there? Have kids cut holes and they're drinking in the woods or whatever it is? Then we move in, the exterior of the building. Is there signs there directing visitors that, all visitors should report to the main office? Things like that as you come up the driveway. Is there separate visitor parking from student parking versus bus drop-off? Can somebody pull in with a car? The front doors of the school, are they accessible to, could somebody drive right up and drive right into the school building, these types of things. And then when you move to the interior, are there security cameras? Are they monitored? Is anybody watching them? So we take a look at the whole school from the outside and move all the way in, right down to what are your policies? Most of the schools here in this township have an emergency policy in every single room. So as soon as you walk in right inside the door, there's a list of what they need to do, a checklist of this. So we look at everything from the outside in, make a determination of, okay, this is what I saw that was strong. This is maybe something to consider in the future. Most of what it is are small things in the grand scheme of things. They're very small things that can be done that can make things so much easier. Again, making sure all the doors on the exterior are locked, thereby a visitor must report to the front office. So just little things that can be done.
Then one of the things, just on security assessments, is we look from sort of that Radnor Township perspective, and I just was wondering if Chief Ryan could explain how you look globally from a county or how you guys are connected to the outside threats that may come as well.
we're connected with all the federal agencies, as is Radner. So anything that's happening in the region, we're well aware of. We get told as soon as those threats are out there. Plus, through the DCIU, we're tuned in with them. So any threat assessment in any school district or any threat that they're aware of, we're made aware of. Plus, we also have a very extensive computer forensic lab. So a lot of times when the threats come in, they're done through social media, through a phone. So our unit is involved from the very beginning to help track down the person making the threats. And while we're on that, it's amazing how quickly that changes. The apps that are out there are changing. To me, it seems like weekly there's a new app, and our youths are very, very aware of them. More so than I think anyone. So, it's an never-ending process to keep our computer people up to date. I joke, I think they go to school more than they work, but it's necessary to keep up with all the changing technology.
Could you address how well Radner Schools are safety covered on
Sure.
this?
The question was about Radner Schools and their safety and security, and I think with the superintendent here, I will pass it over.
So I think one of the things that's really wonderful about Radnor and our community is that safety has always been at the forefront of the district, from developing protocols, from making sure that we have a secure environment. It is something that Radnor has been doing, and the Radnor School Board, the Radnor administration, in coordination with the Radnor Township Police Department, has been on top of for many years. Before even the sad events, the tragic events at Parkland last year, administrators in our school district had reached out to the Pennsylvania State Police to conduct an assessment. This Pennsylvania State Police does risk and vulnerability assessments for school districts. When we had reached out to them, unfortunately, the waiting list was about a year or so at the time, but that was last fall. We did have them come and conduct assessments for our school district. So we have those assessments now. All of our buildings, principals have seen those assessments. The administrative team have evaluated that. We've shared those assessments with the Radnor Township Police. We've also had the Radnor Township Police, the particular situation Sergeant was speaking to. They've come in and worked with us as well. It's a lot of the same information, which is good. It's good to hear from two different viewpoints, some of the things that we can be doing to continue to secure our schools. So it's something that we've been on top of, and it's something that we continue to improve upon. We're continuing looking to add different features to improve the actual soundness of our security and safety. As a school district, though, there's two components. There is the security aspect, which the state police and our Radnor police do a really great job of helping us understand what should we be doing, what are best practices when it comes to doors, to having bollards set up in different places, which are, just for the flow of traffic, for our lighting, for our buzz-in systems, and all of those pieces. But I think for a school district, the other piece for us is also to make sure that what type of community and what type of climate do we have within our school. What is happening with our kids? Do all of our students feel like they are part of the school? Do our students recognize and understand that when they see something, they need to share with us? Our students, I'll tell you, are brutally honest. They give us really good feedback. We think sometimes that kids don't always want to, but no, they do want to share with us. When the sad events at Parkland happened, some of our high school students went to the building administration and they said, what would we do? What would we do here at Radnor? We're concerned about, we know we've got a lot of safety protocols and procedures in place. We know that, but we're concerned. And that's what then prompted that school-wide assembly, and that we had the Radnor Township Police involved in as well. So there's a lot of things that we are doing. The state has also, I think, caught up to in a good way. They've changed some of the just recently with the passage of Act 44, the state now has given school districts the opportunity to talk about security in executive session with their school board. Not that we're trying to hide things from the public, but it gives us the opportunity to really dive deeply and not to disclose everything that we are trying to do. We don't necessarily want to disclose all the pieces that we're doing to make sure our kids are safe and secure. We want to make sure that we are taking every possible procedure, but not giving somebody ideas or hints or suggestions about our vulnerabilities. But that act also has required something that has taken place in Radnor for many years, is that we need to be sharing with our school board on a routine basis what are the pieces that are in our buildings that we use to protect our kids. So that's something that we continue to be doing right now. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, what's the assessment? I mean, is it high? You feel that it's, I don't know, you feel you're meeting what the assessment?
Yeah, I will say that, so the trooper that came with us to do our buildings, who does buildings across the Commonwealth, was very impressed with what we have here in Radnor. I won't speak for Sergeant, but I'll let him share with what, he was impressed. Now, were there still suggestions on how things that we could improve upon? Certainly, there was ideas. I was actually impressed by their assessment, how detailed it was. It wasn't just about active shooters. It was also about, let's look at your pickup lines, your traffic flow. Do you have the proper, maybe you want to put a planter or a bollard here. That was something they talked about, because something when we start talking about safety and security, it was a very comprehensive assessment. It just wasn't about active shooting. It was also about the accidents that happen because, unfortunately, someone gets hit even going slowly at a pickup line. So it was a very comprehensive assessment that has given us some good feedback on areas where we could improve upon. But no, overall, the response that we received from the state police, I won't speak for the Radnor police, is that we have been on top of these things. There's certainly though areas that we can always look to improve upon. You're welcome.
I guess you're on the hot seat tonight.
And Chief told me not to worry about it today.
Recently, just a few weeks ago, we had a student come to school with a gun who had been bullied the day before and killed another student. Does the school district have a program against anti-bullying that can curtail situations like this?
Yes. So the school district, for our discipline policies are very specific about bullying and the steps that we take. Not only do we address and not tolerate bullying situations, we also take the time to try to understand what took place. Why is this happening? Depending age appropriateness, whether we're dealing with an elementary student, a middle school student, or a high school student. What has been happening? What is the other past experiences with this student? Is it something that this student needs some counseling, needs some kind of support? So there is a very comprehensive look. Sometimes it's a student just, it is, my kids run the gamut right now, so I'll pick on my ones that are in 5th grade and 7th grade right now. Sometimes they're just making poor decisions as a 5th grader and a 6th grader do, but we still have to take that seriously. We have to take the time to talk to them, to try to understand why they, are doing what they're doing. I think that the piece that we have all learned about bullying and the concerns in our schools is that when we don't take the time to talk to the kids to find out what's happening, the days of maybe my youth or before when, it's just kids being kids, those don't exist anymore. Those days, good kids do make poor decisions, but as adults, we have to make sure that those kids, when they make those poor decisions, when there is a bullying situation, we're taking the time to not only work with them and let them know what is appropriate, but we're also putting in the supports and also working with that student who's been bullied. That's another big piece of this, is what has been happening and how is that student, dealing with that situation, and what things can we put in place to protect that student to make sure it's not continued. I can tell you right now, when we have bullying situations that are escalating, we work then closely with our police department, who then work with the district attorney. I think the law enforcement, in my time, in my 23 years in education, I've seen a huge change in the communication and support now that we as school districts with law enforcement and even to the district attorney's office have in dealing with bullying.
Along with the superintendent mentioned, part of what we do is that we oftentimes will get obviously contacted by the various schools within Radnor Township as it applies here to us. And if appropriate, we will charge the individual as a juvenile offender. I have in my office a deputy district attorney who is on call 24/7. And he literally gets calls 24/7. and about questions regarding from our police department about, is this appropriate? This is what I have. Does this rise to the level of criminal charges? And so oftentimes, when appropriate, we charge in juvenile offenders with criminal offenses, and they then go through the criminal justice system. Part of the criminal justice system, it's vastly different, obviously, than the adult criminal justice system. In the juvenile system, the focus is on helping them. The focus is on providing them with resources, tools, and aiding them to rehabilitation, because that is really what it's all about as a juvenile offender, is rehabilitation. We have, our police officers have my deputies' numbers. They make well use of it, as they should. So part of what we worry about is it only about criminal offenses, or is it about something a little bit deeper with respect to each one of those individuals? So we also have mental health assessments, which are consistently applied when appropriate to these individuals. Once, hypothetically speaking, a juvenile offender is charged, they then go before a judge very quickly, and the judge decides as to whether or not they should remain in juvenile detention, go to juvenile detention, remain home, what conditions there should be imposed, and what kinds of things need to happen within them or within their family's life to help them get to a better place. So that's part of how we help prevent situations which cause, obviously, trauma to the school. The county offers something called a mobile crisis unit. And the mobile crisis unit is on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they literally come out and they will respond. Typically, the response time is less than an hour. Anytime they're called, and they will do an assessment of an individual, whether or not that be a juvenile or an adult, to address issues which might be based upon mental health issues.
Could just add to that as well. All of our buildings have what we call school-wide behavior plans, and that's the attempts at each one of our buildings to make sure that we are developing and setting a culture and a climate where the bullying doesn't even take place. So as much as we have put in place so much to deal with it when it does happen, we are working proactively to try to make sure that we're developing a community and a climate from kindergarten to 12th grade that doesn't foster, that doesn't create, doesn't give the opportunities for bullying, and lets kids know about what is the proper way to behave and respect of one another.
Evening, Kat. How we doing? My name is John. I attended a prep school out here. All my sisters went to prep school. My dad was a corporate attorney. I worked for a defense guy, all this other stuff. This place should be packed. We should be standing room only. I'm kind of offended that it's not, but I appreciate your time. We need to get some answers. I'm tired, physically tired of reading about all these school shootings. Evil wins when good men and women stand by and finish the rest of it, nothing. Not enough is being done to get to some answers. I would think, if you look at, and I've read some stuff, I have FBI buddies and all the other stuff. I've been up at 9/11. I don't want to show you the details, it was pretty ugly. You need to get to answers. And the answer, I would think, it starts with the parents. You can protect the school all you want. Oh, we have this lock and this lock and this and this and this and this and this. But the bottom line is, when I was growing up, I couldn't consume of an idea where a guy with pink hair would go into a movie theater and mow down 50, 60 people that he's never met before. Or a guy in Vegas would be able to have this magazine, this unbelievable artillery in his place, and chart the trajectories of bullets to maximize kill ratios to people he's never met. This is out of control. We lead the world in mass killings. How did we get to this? When did the genie come out of the bottle? And furthermore, vis-a-vis the Florida situation, without picking on, because there are all these subgroups, and I'm not here to throw guys in the FBI under the bus or anybody else. But the bottom line was the ball was dropped. We said, this guy's a problem. He's a problem. He's a problem. He's a problem. He's cutting himself. He's cutting himself. Dude, look into this. Look into this. Look into this. And we went to certain authorities. They adjudicated that it wasn't a serious issue. 12 people are dead. Oh, well, what did we do wrong? How do we get to some answers? And I think The real answer is the parents need to be held more accountable, you know? While no parent wants to admit that, oh, Johnny has some mental health issues, and I'm going to shorten Johnny's life for the rest of his life or whatever, or lock him up or take him away from society, I think there needs to be more teeth in the laws that currently exist. And if parent being an attorney's son, I don't know how you would adjudicate this, you know, but if mom and dad are going to lose the house, or mom and dad are going to lose this, that, and the next thing, maybe they'd be more concerned about little Johnny's behavior, little Susie's behavior, although females generally don't do this kind of nonsense. What do you think about that? What are the legalities? How do you strengthen the teeth? And how do we end or prevent most of the stuff that really is an unfortunate side of society these days?
So, it was, but that's okay. I can tell you that I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, which will give you a different perspective. I was born here in Delaware County, and when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I moved to Iran. Beautiful country back then, early 1970s, vacation spot of all of Europe. And in 1979, that changed vastly. And my life went from idyllic, where we took vacations, relaxed, it was a beautiful country, happy-go-lucky, if you will, to living under lockdown, to having, at 6 o'clock, there was lights out. I did my homework under candlelight, under the cover of darkness. I learned to read with a flashlight. I mean, I knew how to read, but I was reading with a flashlight under my bed covers. And I could hear gunshots being levied above, people running across rooftops, screaming and yelling. I say that to you because I am still ever so thankful for what we have here. And it is forums such as this which create conversation, which address the kind of issues you're talking about. It is school districts who are open and superintendents who are open to hearing how they can improve that prevent tragedies such as Parkland. It is having summits where you teach teachers how to literally not only self-defense, not only how to protect their children, not only how to protect their classroom, but how to de-escalate, how to spot issues. For me to say that the parents need to learn how to deal with this, I'm not a parent, right? I'm a person who lives in a community who cares deeply about it. Who am I to tell somebody, this is what you should be doing at your house? It's not my role as a prosecutor. It's not my role as a public figure. It's not my role as a chief law enforcement officer. What is my role and what I can do is help educate people, help provide the tools to the school district, help meet with the Delaware County Intermediate Unit on a consistent basis to find out what they need and what I can do to help, and to consistently meet that. Part of what we do day in and day out is we constantly meet with our law enforcement officer. But forums such as this, you say it's disappointing that there aren't more people here. It's the second time they've had it this year. And it doesn't happen a lot of other places. It's wonderful because it's nice to kind of set the bar. And it's nice that we have people who are willing to, who I'm meeting tonight, who are willing to sit down there and give everybody the benefit of their knowledge. In terms of safety, every time we have a very responsive legislation, I should say. Every single time we've gone to our legislators and said, these are the kinds of things that we're noticing, they've been very supportive. So I have no complaints in that regard. Is there room for improvement? I would hope so. We're not stagnant by nature. Part of what I've been doing over the last month, for example, is meeting with the Delaware County Intermediate Unit and trying to figure out how to use funding that we have to help our school districts throughout Delaware County. So we're not just meeting the needs of Radnor, which might be and are vastly different, for example, than the needs of Ridley, than the needs of Yaden, and to try and figure out how to best use funding that is available to us. I can say to you that
Why do we need the world in mass killing?
if I knew the answer to that, we would probably not be in the situation we were, right? We would have a solution. If it was as simple for us, for me to say, this is why, but perhaps part of that also, Tim, comes with mental health issues, right? Part of what we recognize, and I think everybody up here recognizes, and as I'm sure all of you do, it's something that we need to address. As a prosecutor, you think my role is simply, to go in and prosecute crime. Okay, I don't have a job or a role in the mental health system, but can I do something to help? I try to. And that's probably why I mentioned the mobile crisis unit. So people become aware of what the county does to help in that regard. I put on in August, a meeting and open it up to all the teachers in Delaware County about what available resources there are with specifically, and did a whole session about mental health and what resources there are and how the system works here in Delaware County, because each county really is very specific. And hopefully things like that will make the difference as well.
Okay, so, hello? Okay, sorry. You're doing great things. So we have children that would come to the hospital. Sometimes nothing has happened before their arrival into the ED, and they're homicidal or they're suicidal, and it's now a crisis. But long before this crisis, there are little inklings that this child, 5 years old, 8 years old, 15 years old, needs some extra support. So if you, as a parent or a teacher, I know that a lot of schools have counselors or psychologists. The first thing is talking to somebody, whether it's your pediatrician or whether it's the school counselor, to say, these are the concerns that I have. I've noticed that you can fill in the blank, they're isolating themselves, they're failing school, they're doing things that kids may or may not typically do at this age. Do you think that we should get them into counseling? And that might be a conversation with the pediatrician who will say, I work with a group that accepts your insurance, here's the number, or on the back of everybody's insurance card, if you have mental health coverage, the phone number's right there. There are, depending on where you live and what county, there are different resources for children versus adolescents. Because if you wait until there is a crisis and they're in the emergency room, and the recommendation is outpatient, it doesn't meet the level of criteria for partial or inpatient. Sometimes those kids that it feels like a crisis right now to the teacher who sent them in or to the parent who is witnessing a certain kind of behavior, but if it doesn't meet the level of criteria for a higher level of care and they need outpatient, sometimes depending on where they live, what type of insurance they have, access to transportation, all of these different things, it could be weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks before they could get in for an evaluation, let alone a weekly time or every other week to actually see somebody. So it's great if you start to see something, just to have that conversation with the pediatrician who might have known your child or for the last 15 years and say, you know what, I really recognize what you're saying and I see a change in their behavior. And sometimes there's a lot going on that we may or may not even know about. Like maybe they are being bullied at school, or maybe there's things happening at home with their parents, or maybe their parents are getting divorced or whatever. And I mean, the ER at CHOP is, the social workers are present 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And because have been out of I'm still at CHOP, but I've been out of the emergency room for 11 months now. They see so many mental health crises every single day. And 4 years old, 5 years old, 18 years old. So it's just that if you see something, you feel something, it's worth kind of just starting to navigate the system, because it's not an easy system. There are a lot of hurdles and hoops, and, you know, it's practically a full-time job sometimes just for you to get services for your own child.
And I think you have to realize it's a two-pronged approach. Our teachers also are invited to the DCIU. We have a non-public group. We have a principals meeting where we talk about these things. Mental health classes that our counselors always take, and sometimes we'll add teachers to it. But there's also wonderful programs in this community, and I know Radnor's part of, for instance, Speak Up. And not only do we have it on the high school level now, we have it on the middle school level. And the list is growing by the minute to try to schools to get into the program. I mean, it's such a great program that it can't grow fast enough to meet the needs. But it's teaching children how to speak to each other, how to speak to their parents, and how to speak to other people in their lives, whether it's their teachers, their counselors, their pastors, their rabbis, whatever it is. Another wonderful organization that we have a speaker come every year, Minding Your Minds. These are young people who struggled with mental health while in high school. And they tell their stories. And I'm at an all-girls school, but we always bring a boy in over the 4 years that the girl, we do it 8 through 12, but over the 4 years that the high schools girls see these speakers, because we don't want our girls to think that mental health is a girl problem. And we don't want our boys to think it's a boy problem. It's a people problem. So it's really a two-pronged approach in teaching children how to recognize, who to talk to, and also our teachers at the same time, giving them the tools, how to recognize, and when a student tells you something, how to really assess what it is they're trying to tell you. They're great actors. They want you to think that they have everything under control. And they do a wonderful job. And when we have these dialogues at Speak Up, one time I was in a group of mixed high school students, and I said, well, have you told your teacher this? Well, no. I said, oh, so she's supposed to look at you, this beautiful young lady who's in the theater program, but you're home at night curled up in a ball in the corner of your room because you're frozen and you can't do your homework. Does she see this person? Well, no. So this is what we're working on with our youth through these kind of programs. We have to do run, hide, fight, whatever. But we also have to teach our children how to recognize what's going on and how to speak to us and not to be ashamed.
I was just wondering if we could go back for a second to the crisis, the mobile crisis unit, the mental health crisis for someone at the ER CHOP. And could you draw that to law enforcement, and how do you know if there's a gun in that situation? Because when people speak to these shooters, they say, I knew where my dad's gun was, and I got it. So I think draw the line for us on how someone's in crisis and how you know if they have a gun, and what's done about that, so we get to prevention.
Well, let me build out from a call. We respond, and just as everybody's here talking about education, we are educating our police officers as well. Matter of fact, our county officers kind of what I'll call a crisis crash course, a 3-day course, where officers are now getting more training in mental health awareness, not how to handle it, but to know that there's a problem. Once that's done, if it's criminal or a medical emergency or a combination thereof, we have to make a split-second decision on whether we're going to go to the hospital and start that way and end with charges, or get charges, or if it's not warranting charges, what are we going to do? Before, if it was just a private matter, we wouldn't have a conversation with our schools. Now, if somebody's involved, we'll make sure that if it ties together or has any links to the school district, we'll make sure that their team is aware so they can properly handle it. We seek guidance from the district attorney's office and obviously hospital level trained emergency workers or our special response team for Delaware County. There's a difference, and a lot of people have asked about domestics, such as domestic violence, where we have the opportunity to have people turn over weapons. That is not something that is currently available to us in the mental health emergency. If somebody makes a threat or something along those lines, then we certainly can take action or request for a search warrant or seizure of something that may be involved besides just weapons, where we can take a look at it. So there's some differences that do handle this. If it goes to the district attorney's office or mental health, I'll let them answer on phases 2 and 3, depending on how it goes.
So with respect to how it comes to the district attorney's office, we are only involved with respect to the mental health aspect as if there are criminal charges that are filed, right? We can give advice to our police officers with respect to whether or not there is a crime, there isn't a crime. There is an entire mobile crisis unit which has a court associated with it. So when, and I don't mean a criminal court, but it's a court where they determine, are you having a problem? What should happen? Should you be involuntarily committed? Should you be voluntarily committed? They do this based upon assessments. They then based and if it's something you're interested in, I'm happy to introduce you to somebody who would be able to give you a more detailed aspect of that. But they then decide, and one of the questions that's asked is, do you have weapons? Do you have access to weapons? They speak to the family members. Do you have weapons in the house? Do you have access to weapons? And they specifically then make sure that those weapons are taken out of the home and placed in a location. And it's funny, one of the questions that was asked at the symposium that I put on last month was to the people who run this mental health court. They asked about, well, how do you get somebody to give up their firearms in those situations? And can you make them? And believe it or not, so far, every single time they've been able to do so. They can actually go and petition the court if required. So far, convincing has won the game so far 100% of the time. There are obviously other options available to them if they're not able to convince people to, in fact, give up firearms from those situations where they're being either voluntarily committed or involuntarily committed. But at least there are those backstops to help them in that regard.
So specifically to your question about the guns, one of the questions that we always asked in the emergency room is, do you have access to a gun? We had a lot of children that came in, aside from the mental health piece, maybe they were involved, they were assaulted at school, or they were assaulted at the bus stop. We talked about retaliation, are you going to go after these kids? Do you feel safe going back to school? Do you feel safe going back on the bus? If you were to talk to your friends, who are going to now be weapons new friends, do you have a gun? And are you going to be using the gun? And depending on how they answer those questions, I then call the police and they come and they do their thing. But it is a question that we ask. And if the children that come in for earrings, they also get asked, do you guys have guns in your home? Do you have a lock? And stuff like that. And like you were saying about, the 201 and the 302. We can talk about this for hours. So, if obviously, if somebody was going to use their gun on somebody and they just didn't want to have to spend the night, you know, there are certain things that psychiatrists can do to make them have to spend the night.
I guess the battery's dead. Oh. My questions start with this gentleman what I thought. I feel his pain, okay, because I have the same questions. I have a different way of trying to get the answer, but I feel his pain. And not just his pain, but a lot of people dealing with it, understanding. First of all, I think, when he was talking about his day, my day, when I was a kid, how we respect and speak to our parents and how our kids are speaking to us now is a whole different thing. We can't go back and instill, God, I wish we could, but we can't instill those values, generally speaking, with the kids. Things have changed. But the parents back in our day knew us better than the teachers. Today, that's not the case in many of them. The kids that have trouble, backgrounds, whatever it is, whether it's school, home, or things that could be divorced, could be anything. The parents are so busy working their problems out, whether it be financial, whatever they are, both parents working, the teacher has more time with that child than the parent. And if the teacher sees something and wants to make a suggestion, they're kind of held back a little bit because they will surely, as I'm sitting here, be accused of, by the parent, saying, are you trained in this? Are you a psychologist or psychologist? I have seen this in Haverford school system where my kids went through that. And I see it now and all over the country. The parents will not support the teacher. And I think that the parents should be held responsible, and I'm going to go to what you said, that if they pick up a gun at home and they have access to it, then it's the parents' fault. There's a law already on the books that say if there's a gun at home, they have to make it inaccessible to children.
Is that true? Can people be charged for not securing weapons?
If the child takes a gun, the parent's responsible for not locking it up properly so the child can't get it. Because the child's not allowed to have a gun.
You're right, the child's not allowed to have a gun.
Okay, so
You're
if
right,
they get
the
it,
child is
whose
not allowed
fault
to have
is
a
it?
gun.
It's the parents who didn't secure it properly, okay? And I would like to see more parents either take the responsibility or you give them the responsibility in court for their inactions. And not just you as an individual, but your position.
Understood.
I would like
So here's the thing, I'm a prosecutor, right? I don't have the luxury of creating law. That is not for me. I am the beneficiary of the wonderful laws that we have on the books. If there is a gun at home, there is no obligation of an individual to keep that gun locked.
I know that.
Okay. An individual can keep a gun in a location, and if perhaps you, depending on the circumstances, and I really mean depending on the circumstances, a parent could be charged with recklessly endangering a child by keeping, but those would have to be fact-driven situations. I don't know if that answers your question, but in the appropriate situations, we do charge people, parents,
siblings, strangers, whoever those individuals might be, friends, who provide firearms to individuals when they know what they're going to do with them, or in the alternative, when they provide them and make them accessible to them in a way that is recklessly endangering the life of another. But that is a legal burden which we have to meet. And in the situations where we can meet them, we do every single time.
I'm speaking specifically, child takes the gun, smuggles it into school, somebody found out.
So I just to keep this moving, because I think that we've explained that we charge and each is a case-by-case basis, and I think everybody would agree we take it extremely seriously. I think the whole panel, school, whatever would agree on that. Ma'am?
Thank you all for having this. It's very informative. My husband and I came here tonight, I think, for two reasons. One, to sort of find out and be reassured that our kids are safe in Radnor Schools. Our youngest is a senior, and we've always been very impressed with the proactiveness of Radnor Schools. And I guess we're talking a lot about generalizations about parents' responsibility and, you know, the climate today or whatever. But I think it's important to kind of drill it down. So Ken, I have this question for you. What happens in Radnor when you know, somebody, and I know this has happened in the years that I've been at Radnor, somebody identifies that a kid has made a threat on social media or whatever. You know, I don't ever want any child to be thrown away or overly separated for an indiscretion, a youthful indiscretion for any reason. But, you know, we all want to know that our kids are safe and that there's like a practice in place for watching that child and making a determination, you know, when they can't be in Radnor Schools anymore, and then what happens to them. I guess, you know, as a parent, I would kind of like to know what we do when, you know, a potential threat has been identified, and maybe sort of towards what this gentleman was talking about in Parkland. I think we can all agree that that child that committed that crime, a lot of flags were missed, and, you know, he was left to his own devices when maybe something should have happened. So that's one reason. Like, what happens at Radnor when we identify that there's, you know, a potential threat? How does that play out? Our other reason for coming is, you know, after what happened in Pittsburgh, I went to church on Sunday, and I sat there for that hour with, you know, one eye on the door. And so I guess I'd like to know from the police department, you know, before we can get you into our church or into my school, I work at Eastern University to train us all, what are some things that we can kind of look at in our places of worship or in our businesses to help us make them safer, you know, in the short term? Do we just have one door? Do we, I don't know, things like that. So that's a two-part question, one for Ken and one for the
I'll give Chief a moment and I'll start. Your question is a really good question, and I think it's a question that's on every parent's mind. And I think the reality is when we're dealing within a situation, thank you. It's so hard for us to share details because everyone has rights. At the same time, I think you put it well. You know, we are a district. We care about all of the kids. And even that student who has done something awful, we want to do something to address that, to make sure that before this student graduates, that we've done everything possible to offer the supports and correct and address whatever that is. That being said, the safety of our students is our utmost priority. So when we have a threat, and I'm going to pick, just for the sake of picking just a grade level or a building, I'm going to pick our high school. So if we have at the high school level a hypothetical situation where we have a student who has made a threat to harm another student or harm the school, that is quickly investigated. The police are contacted. They are part of that investigation. If the moment we determine that threat and we're with that student, we will have one of our social workers meet with that student. I can't do that, actually, and I shouldn't probably be publicly saying that. We really shouldn't have a therapist seeing a student without the parent's permission. But the reality is, if we have a student in the building at the high school level, and they are right there at that moment expressing, or we think there is a relevant threat, while we're also contacting the police and the administrations with that student, we're having our social worker or therapist in there to begin a conversation with that student as well to find out what's going on. From that discussion, depending what we find out from the threat, the police involvement in that investigation, there's discipline, there's suspension, we take active steps to make sure that that student is getting the help they need. Questions are being asked right away. If there's a student with a threat, do you have access to guns? We're sharing that with the police. When the police come to investigate, we want to know, do they have access? We will tell parents that your child can't be back in the school until we get an outside evaluation that they are safe to not harm someone else or harm themselves, depending on the situation, but harming someone else. We have to protect their rights too, and we're sometimes in a tough spot. We have certain things that we can do as a school district. The police then, they play a role in this, but their role with the district attorney is a little bit different. Sometimes there are things that we as a school district find very unsettling, and that we will clearly investigate, and maybe it's not criminal, but we don't feel comfortable, and that's where we will say, sorry, the student can't come in until we get an outside evaluation that someone says they're safe to be in school. We unfortunately don't have a long, that becomes an interesting legal battle that I've been in, because a parent will come in and say, well, no, my child gets to be in the school, and we'll say, no, we're gonna play this game, and until we get that outside evaluation, we're not having them back in the school. At the same time, though, it creates the opportunity for discussion. In just about every situation I have been in with those, whether being a high school principal or a superintendent, that in that time period that student is out of our building and the discussions are happening and the requirement for therapy or some type of evaluation is happening, there becomes this opportunity to get support for that student, and there becomes this recognition that something needs to be happen. I've been very impressed in those situations that how quickly our police and district attorney respond. When we have a threat and we say we're concerned, we want to know whether there's gun, depending on what the threat is, and I don't want to speak for the police, but there's conversations, and I know there's things happening to find out, does this student have access? The opportunities, though, become what kind of supports, what kind of help does the student need that led to this? And those supports that we can give as a district, we're very fortunate that we have not only some on staff, but we also have the opportunity to help guide parents through that process. It is a challenge countywide, though. I will tell you, the mental health crisis and the crisis for our youth, and when you shared about the waiting at an ER, I think that is a challenge. We, as a district, may be able to keep them out until certain things happen, but there is a challenge within our county, and I think this within our nation, on what are those supports that then are available for those kids and trying to help them to get that help. Did I answer your question?
Important question about the religious institutions and churches. Just, this symposium was sent to every church or religious institution in Radnor, and I'll just be brief. All the safety procedures that we follow and extra patrols and everything, we are happy to do for any church. So I'll keep it real simple. We can talk offline about it. Since Columbine, Radnor Police changed and started visiting schools. It's something unique. My children go to a township. They do not do that. I wish they did, and I've asked them to. So we have had discussions, and it's going to come up before the board if we'll offer that service to churches where we do a church visit or a religious institution visit based on their celebration day. So talk to us offline, and we'll go over all the things that we can offer you. What I was hoping to do is have one or two more questions, have the speakers give a final comment, and then we spread out and make sure we can go one-on-one with everybody. I'm sorry, somebody had their hand up.
I'm heavily involved with community sports programs in Radnor, and we obviously don't have the infrastructure that the school district has, or that the religious organizations have. And so, having seen all this, it's somewhat of a concern of what we can do. Most of our organizations are totally volunteer. And so a sort of feeling that we're a little bit vulnerable. We're on school or township fields or in school or township facilities involved with sports, and sometimes, whether it's high school kids or whether it's even younger kids or parents or coaches that get a little heated because of the competition. And sometimes it can be, we've never seen anything, but at times it's a little bit concerning. And whether there's some kind of advice we can get on things that we could do.
And I'll just answer real quickly. Detective Metzler, Lieutenant Pinto, we come out to all organizations. We're happy to come out to the parents group and go over some of the things in the pre-warning to see something. Say all these building blocks help handle situations like that, and your 911 system. So we're happy to come out and visit your leadership team and go over things that would be considered best practices to mitigate those problems, and go over the resources that are available.
Forgive me, I came in late, so if this was covered, I can just go offline. But is there a target response time for special operations, tactical, resources to be deployed from the moment you get a 911 call of an active shooter situation? Are those resources deployed sufficient to hit that target response time? You train for that?
I'm going to answer the beginning part of a 911 call is received of an active shooter. And remember, Delaware County, one of the only counties under the DA's office to have Del Pass. So the schools that have it, all they have to do is hit a button, which will activate literally a county-wide response, notify all key stakeholders, including tactical teams. So your local police. There used to be boundaries when it comes to a school situation or active shooter. There's no boundaries for police officers anymore. Everybody's coming in a major response. So within minutes, your first arrival police officers are going to come, and then I'll let Detective Metzler, who happens to be one of our Delaware County SWAT members, answer about the tactical component to answer your question.
So one of the things from the studies that have shown in these unfortunate incidents is that the average incident inside of a school, an active shooter, an active killing inside of a school, is usually over in 3 to 4 minutes. Our patrol officers here in Radnor Township, every patrol vehicle is equipped with a rifle, with several, almost 100 rounds of ammunition, ballistic helmets, ballistic plates. Each officer has tourniquets. So if there is an incident, if we train our officers, if there is an incident, if we are dispatched to the school for some type of horrific incident, our officers are there within minutes. One of the things that Columbine taught us is that we do not wait for more officers to arrive. We do not wait for the SWAT team. Although I am a SWAT member, I train our patrol officers, as does Lieutenant Pinto. We will be in the school long before a SWAT team gets there. The first officer arrived is trained to get out, seek the threat, and destroy that threat. That is what we are trained. So again, keeping in mind that 3 to 4 minutes is the average incident is over. Our officers are there within minutes. That's the way we train them. And they are trained to not only have to go in by themselves and link up with other officers. That is part of the training that we do.
And I'll just ask Chief Ryan just to talk about a couple of special resources how they would activate and come to help us.
Well, the Del Pass system, which the district attorney put in every school building in Delaware County, private, parochial, public, has one. And as Chief said, that once that button's pushed, the cavalry's coming. Everybody's coming, everybody's alert. There's a whole system in place that when there is a Del Pass activated, everybody's notified. I'm notified, the DA's notified. A lot of resources other than just the patrol officers are notified throughout the county. So you have a lot of mobilization of other resources who are starting to activate to start moving towards that school. So it's a county-wide system, whether it's here in Radnor, in Chester, in Upper Darby, wherever, and basically everybody's coming.
How long has Del Pass been?
I'm going to say about 3 years now. 4 years is when we first. 2013. It was after Sandy Hook. Was it after Sandy Hook? I believe is when we.
all get an alert. If something happens in Upper Doherty, I get the alert. I know what building it is. I know what the threat is because it can impact other schools that surround. So if the school up the street from me is going into a lockdown, it's probably a pretty good idea I have 2 buildings. So that we're just going to stay put because we know that everyone's going there. I'm grateful to tell you that they usually are called off within minutes, but it can also impact transportation. So it's very transparent, which I really appreciate. And we just sit and wait, and if it's something local, we'll sit and wait until we hear from somebody from Radnor who says, it's all good, go back to your daily function, so.
So the additional aspect of Del Pass is that not only does the cavalry come upon pushing of it's literally the red button, but also the 911 center can hear what is going on in that area, so that people who actually who've pushed the button can speak to the 911 center without having to actually pick up that telephone line and let them know what is going on, and they have the opportunity not only to hear what's going on, but many of the school districts have also gotten to the point where they will do a feed into the 911 center, and that's part of what I guess the next step is, if you will.
I'm not sure I can use this, but I'll try. I wanted to ask about run, hide, and fight. How does that work, and who makes that decision?
You make it.
Like I work in a public school, Eisenhower Middle School. So everybody's doing something different. Like something happened in the gym, but I'm like far away from the gym. Then I want to run. Is that? And how do you know that you make that call?
So this is a very important topic to us because it is individual-based decision. We give you options. We work with the school to create a protocol so that you know what your options are. Because you're a smart adult, you're going to have to make decisions. And what we found in these emergencies, we have to be transitional. We can't always say go to the flagpole because if that's where the emergency is. So
well, we now have a phase 1 and a phase 2.
Exactly.
Phase 1 thing, we go one place. And then if it's a phase 2, we go from phase 1 place to phase.
That resource center, and I'm going to hook you up with Detective Metzler to go over some of those details. But Run, Hide, Fight is individually driven. It gives you options, and you must remain transitional. Just like the police officers can't just do one thing anymore. We have to be able to change our plan of action. You know, but this is what we're here for. This is part of the training and awareness.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wallace. I'm a parent, a Radnor Elementary School parent, and a member of a number of the gun safety groups that are here tonight. I had a funding question about the $60 million that was put aside at the state level, or earmarked at the state level to increase school safety. And I'm curious to know sort of what the process or timeline is for making decisions about the use of that funding, and if Radnor has been involved in those conversations to date, and then if there would be sort of an opportunity for public involvement in the types of support that we're requesting.
So, Radnor's, my mic. I like that.
Big township, we have one mic.
So we have been involved, we applied for $25,000 for a Safe Schools grant, which is separate from the dollars you were discussing. It's grants that have existed before. It's a competitive grant process. We did not receive that $25,000. We didn't expect to. Looking at our district, looking at other districts that are applying, we didn't expect to, but we thought, you know what, we don't want to leave any stone unturned. We gave it a shot this summer. The new dollars from the state, it looks to me like every district could receive separate $25,000, happens to be the same amount, around $25,000 towards security. So we have applied for that grant. We have not heard yet the result, but the way that it looks like the state has set up the formula, I anticipate that most districts are probably going to receive that $25,000, hopefully. So we are looking to increase some of our security measures, with that. We're looking at additional cameras. We're looking at some of the recommendations from our recent audits, some of the things that we can do to try to secure our buildings a little more, how we want to apply that $25,000. The state also then opened up another grant, a Part B to that grant, and that Part B piece really didn't have a limit per se on how much you could apply for, but it was more broadly based and more competitively based again. I don't think we're going to qualify for that competitive piece, but we did again go for that one. Not a large amount, but we went for that one as well for some of the things that we are looking at doing and anticipating. And then I know the county has been involved as well and working, and I thank the district attorney and Chief Ryan working with the area superintendents and the Delaware County IU for some dollars that have come through the county as well to be worked with the school districts.
So part of what we receive funding, generally anti-violence funding, and the money that we have received this year specifically for the anti-violence, starting in September, we anticipate it coming in. It hasn't come in yet. We anticipate it doing so. However, we've earmarked it to be spending on our schools, and recognizing that that was funding that we expected to come in, we had a bunch of ideas of, this is what we think it might be helpful for us. And we met with the superintendents and the DCIU. And some people liked the idea, for example, of an audit. But as an example, Radnor already has had a school audit. There's a big wait, as the superintendent indicated. Several of the local school districts are waiting for an audit, but they've done different things. So we sat down with them and talked to them about, we created a working group and talked to them about what they think they might need as a whole, and everybody kind of agreed whatever that unit decided was best, how to spend the funds is what we would do. And so we're looking at how to spend those funds, specifically to address school safety issues. So that's what we'll be rolling out this coming year, about what things that we're going to do to help the schools address school safety issues, and probably in the next couple months.
We've received a lot of support in reference to Radnor Township. With these officers trained, regardless of the expense or what we have to do, they are available and have school safety assessments and training. We will not stop regardless of the budget. The commissioners have authorized us to continue forward. So if a Radnor school or a Radnor religious or church needs hardening of the target, where we go over building stuff or training, we will meet that need regardless of what happens. The township's going to work that out. So between the triune of people speaking here, everybody's working together to deliver safety and security. And there's always more to be done, but I hope that gives you a question. And if there's somebody who thinks they need something within Radnor's border, I will be outside to make sure that that gets addressed, starting this evening. It's 8:18. What I was hoping to do is pass the microphone down. The Radnor police team, and I don't know the commitments of the other one, are going to fan out. I really hope that you come out and see the Be Smart board, our gun locks, our SWAT display. We'll have our canine here just so you can meet him, and we have some equipment outside. And again, we hope that we don't have to use this, but what we want to do is let you know what's available and what the time and commitment by all the partners here. Some of them are in the audience. So before I let everybody go, there is a sign-in sheet. We really want to try and capture who was here. If you're willing to sign in, of course, it's voluntary. Please sign up so we can follow up with you. It was great having you here. I have to really acknowledge this wonderful panel who volunteered their time. Since they all came, we're going to ask them to make a brief closing remark, and then we'll meet you guys outside.
Well, I just want to say thank you for inviting us and for continuing this dialogue, and for your unwavering support. And we will continue to work hard to try to provide the safest schools that we can for our students, and training and the ability to identify what's going on, and I've been in this position about, I don't know, 14 or 15 years ago. If you told me 40 years ago when I went to college to be a teacher, we never even talked about safety. Be nice to the maintenance man was kind of the message. He was going to be your best friend. And it certainly has changed, but it's a huge team effort. And I think it's good that you ask questions, but I also think sometimes you just have to have some trust in these people who work with your children every day, because they want to be safe too. And they come to work every day, not just to teach math and history, but to make sure that your child becomes the best person they can be, because that gives such a sense of pride to any school district or any school when our children leave and they're successful and they have tools for either college or the workforce.
And like she said, thank you very much for coming out tonight. And just know that there are resources out there and there are people to help you find them if you or your child or your niece or nephew or whatever, you feel like they need some sort of extra support.
I wanted to express my appreciation not only to Superintendent Flanagan and his entire department for putting on tonight's symposium, so we greatly appreciate the opportunity to interact with all of you. Specifically, thank you to the Radnor residents for gun safety. Thank you for putting up, raising the funds to, produce the gun locks and allowing me to match that and help keep our residents safe. In terms of the summit that I mentioned to you all that we offered to our school teachers just last week with respect to self-defense aspects, Stop the Bleed, we are happy to come out to every single school within Delaware County and offer that at each school, at religious organizations, at small community groups as well, and teach people how to help maintain safety amongst themselves. And we can obviously change it and tweak it depending on who we're doing the presentation to.
Echo everyone with the thank yous. Thank you, Radnor Police, for putting this together, and the panelists as well, and for all of you for taking the time to be here. I'm sitting here thinking about, as a parent, and putting on my being a parent and representing the school district. Our school district takes every possible step to make sure our kids are as safe as they can be. And if we have a threat or we have something, every possible resource we have is being put together, and there's a team effort, and I've been very impressed with the team effort with our police department and the district attorney's office to address that threat. Unfortunately and sadly, I don't know that any school is immune from what we're seeing happening. And we need to continue to have discussions like this, and we need to continue to look to see how we can improve. And we need to focus on, obviously, the security aspect, but I really believe that the strength is that we need to focus on what it is that is creating this. What is the dynamic within our students that's happening? Is it, what can we do to make sure our kids are feeling part of our school community, that our other kids are recognizing when they see the signs? I know some of the concerns to talk about what's happening in society and where's it's going. I think we'd be surprised to find out that studies show that our kids today are far more tolerant and accepting than kids were years ago. So there is a lot of positive things about our students, and there's a lot of positive things, I'm going to speak just to Radnor because we're here in Radnor, about our kids that is just truly inspiring when we see that in our kids. And the acceptance that our kids have. Are our kids under a lot of pressure? Is it hard being a kid today? I think it is. I think there's a lot of pressure. A lot of things have changed. I feel like an old man. My kids yell at me when I blame the cell phone and I blame different things for what's contributing to the pressures. Parents, what are we doing to contribute to those pressures on our kids as well? But there's so much positives I see with our kids as well going on. So I don't want us to lose sight of that. I think, though, discussions and continuing to try to talk about what we can do, I think parents, we need opportunities to come together as parents, which I think we do as a district, and try to do as much as we can to just talk about as a parent, how do we deal with these things, the struggles we have, you know, on a whole wide variety of issues. Because the more that we're talking about our kids, the more we're looking at some of the decisions that our kids are making and how we can reach out to the district, reach out to other places for help and support, I think the more secure and successful and safe our kids will be. So thank you for being here tonight.
You know, early on, the Radnor Police went through their PowerPoint. They went through it quickly. And I think it's something everybody should go and look at is their webpage, because they have great, great resources on there. They have the run, hide, fight video. They have the see something, say something. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job where when you have your own time to sit there and watch it, go back, watch it again. It's just a fantastic resource that they've offered for the residents here, and it's really been a great job, and it's a great thing everybody should take the time to go and look at.
I've been fortunate enough that this is my second time to be able to sit on this panel, and I want to jump on top of what Chief Ryan said. This is a resource. We don't claim to have all the answers. I certainly don't have all the answers, but with all these people up here, we can find you the answer and get you the answer. And with the help of the chief and the board, they've given us the authority. If we don't have the answer, we'll go to school, we'll get somebody trained, and we'll come up with a new answer. So use the resource. We're here for you. Whatever it takes, we will get it done.
As a detective here, I can tell you from firsthand knowledge that the school district, Radnor School District, and the private schools here in town, if they even remotely see or hear anything that is concerning to them, they immediately reach out to us. We immediately respond, and we do it frequently. So they are very proactive on social media. Anything that comes up in the school, they call us immediately, we respond immediately, and we investigate it immediately. So the school district does a great job. Stop out and see me at my SWAT stuff. I can show you some of the equipment we use. And thanks, everybody, for coming.
So thank you, everybody. Something just resonated with me as we leave. Try and say hello to somebody that you don't know. This panel group here is working hard. You're working hard. Let's just take a minute to interact with everybody before you have to run. Stop out and see the great display by Be Smart.